Hey everybody, my name is Ian O'Byrne. I'm the department editor for the Journal of Adolescent and Adult Literacy. What we're doing is we're putting together a series of interviews with experts in the field to add some depth and complexity to the columns that we're putting out. And so the most recent column I put together with my colleague, Christy Pytash, is all about hybrid and blended learning. And so as part of that column, we interview a good friend of mine, Tim Flanagan. So Tim, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Tim Flanagan. I teach seventh grade. This year I'm teaching language arts and social studies at Pawcatuck Middle School in Stonington, Connecticut. And I recently completed my sixth-year degree in instructional technologies and digital media literacy at the University of New Haven. I'm also
Very cool.
also
So
I'm
Tim gave us, it was an honor to focus on him in the column. And there's numerous factors why we wanted to focus on him. And so we'll start unpacking that. But first of all, what does hybrid or blended learning mean to you?
So my first introduction to hybrid or blended learning was as a student in the instructional technologies program at the University of New Haven, and it was a year-long intensive program where the learning was done online independently, and also in shared spaces online, and also in occasional face-to-face meetings. So I see hybrid learning as this combination of having time and having control over your time and your space in terms of when and where to learn, and having connections with others online in places like Google, Google Communities, and also having occasional face-to-face meetings. So that you can make those connections. So there's a combination of those aspects. Another tool that's used, or that I've used a lot in hybrid learning, is Google Hangouts, like we're doing now. So if you can't be physically in the same place, and you need that connection, we use Google Hangouts a lot. And sometimes those happen organically, as the students in my program, we created our own hangouts sometimes to discuss work that we were doing, or to plan projects, or to work on papers together. Other times they were scheduled meetings of hangouts. So it's a structure that's has some structure to it, some set sort of schedule, but it's also very much open-ended in terms of the student is allowed to work at their pace, work at their own pace, and work in certain spaces and in certain times that are more convenient to them.
Now, I mean, when we first met, were teaching, you were a full-time teacher, you wanted something more, you were looking at different, development opportunities, you're trying to figure out what the next step was, but, you knew that you needed a certain amount of flexibility. And like you said, you needed, hybrid or blended offers some flexibility, and you can be in charge of your own time. So thinking about the decisions that you made and then the future of teacher development, teacher professional development, what affordances, what advantages or disadvantages do we get from a hybrid or a blended model?
So, yeah, you mentioned a few good points. Is that the great advantage is teachers being able to work within the time that they have available. So as you say, teachers are busy teaching throughout the week. Evenings, where we all know we're doing our work at night for the next day, or planning the next lessons or units. And of course, the work spills over into the weekend sometimes. So to sign up for a traditional face-to-face program, I think a lot of teachers hold off on that because they do not have the time. They just simply cannot fit it in. Not to mention that teachers have families and other outside commitments, in their lives. It's not just all about school. So the hybrid learning really gives you that flexibility to be able to first of all, it just opens the door that you see the possibilities, and you think, well, if I only have to have a face-to-face meeting maybe 3 or 4 times in this semester, I could handle that. Maybe once a month, I could drive to the campus and I can meet, and then that time in between is flexible for me to schedule and to work around. So if I have a busy weekend and my family's busy, or we have to go to a wedding or whatever is going on, I can not worry about that because I can still schedule that, and then during the time that I have during the week, do the work that I need to do for the course. Um, so I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think it creates more opportunities for teachers. I think many teachers finding out about it, but I still think it's a very new idea to a lot of teachers. I think a lot of teachers and maybe people in general think of online learning as either exclusively online or not. Um, and this idea of hybrid learning, I think, is still very new to a lot of people that I know. And I'm always explaining how it works to people because they just have an image in their mind of, oh, you take your class online. I said, well, some of it I do. And I also have an image of, well, you meet every Monday at 7 o'clock online, right? No, that's not how it works. It's much more open-ended and flexible than that. So there's a lot of misunderstanding as to what it is. But I think once teachers realize what it is, they see the possibilities. So I think it's great opportunities for teachers, and in terms of academic work, but also professional development as well.
What do you think? We didn't have this as one of the questions, but what would your response to be? What would your response to people be that would say, well, why would you meet face to face? Like, why not just do it totally online? What do you gain from showing up 3 times in a couple months face to face?
Good question, and it's a little bit hard to put into words. Last night, I had the first. I'm teaching a course now in the program that you started at the University of New Haven, and so I'm teaching a hybrid course. And last night, although we were in week 4 of our course, last night was our first face-to-face meeting. And after a 2.5, 3-hour meeting that we had with another professor, myself, and the students in the course, several of them said, as we were planning our next face-to-face meeting, when should we meet? How often should we meet? Many just spontaneously made the comment, I really like meeting face-to-face. There's something about making the personal connections, for one, that's one part of it. But also, there's so much more information that gets exchanged when you're face-to-face. There's just so much more you get in terms of the conversations, everyone together in the same room, the facial expressions, the spontaneous questions. There's just, like I said, it's hard to put into words, but there is a connection that happens. But at the same time, everyone agreed we can't do this every week. We don't have time to do this every week. A 3-hour class is not going to happen, and so we're actually planning 3 of those face-to-face meetings during the course of the semester, which seems to work well for everybody.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, people that would say, I wouldn't have taken this program if it was solely online. I wanted to have the blended part. Like, I want to come in a couple times, and that was a risk that we took developing the program, having those face-to-face meetings. So thinking about hybrid learning, thinking about blended learning models, and what you are teaching now and then models that you've gone through as a student, what opportunities does this provide possibly for K-12? We have a lot of readers of the journal that are in secondary. We have a lot of colleagues that are in elementary schools. What opportunities do you see, pedagogical opportunities for hybrid or blended learning in K-12?
So I think a lot of teachers are already taking advantage of things like flipped classrooms, flipped lessons, and using a variety of online tools to engage students and to assign work outside the classroom. It still, I think, in most cases falls within the structure of here's our school day, you come here every day, and here's the things that you do at home, when you're not when you're not at school. Um, but I see opportunities that, why can't it look like say a university course where you are doing some of the work more independently, and you're doing the work within a flexible time period, and then getting together for face-to-face meetings. Or maybe there's opportunities where schools can be designed differently. I think this opens up opportunities to create a new type of school. It doesn't have to be that students are staying at home and working, but maybe they're coming to school and working in these flexible spaces, and working on whether they're independent projects or assigned projects, and using the technology to do their research, collaborate, and to work together online, and then having class meeting as needed. Maybe they're not needed all the time. Maybe you don't have to meet with that class every day, and teachers might be more in that facilitator role where they're creating the content for the class and the assignments and whatnot, but they're advisors to the students as they're pursuing these studies. I think it's probably beyond our imagination what schools could look like as a result of this, but I think there's a lot of possibilities to create.
So going through the program and you talk about those possibilities, um, you go back in your classroom, what are things that you have tried? What are things that have worked? What are things that have not worked? What are things that you've experimented with in terms of hybrid or blended learning with your students in your classroom?
So there's definitely a few things that I've tried, and I don't, I guess they come under the heading of hybrid learning, but they're not, they're not where I really want to be yet. They're just beginning steps. But one thing is, that I got out of the 6-year program was creating a digital learning hub. So I do have now all of, most of my course content that I'm teaching online. My students go to my digital learning hub every day, several times a day for whatever they need.
What grade do you teach?
7th grade, yeah.
And they still are going to your hub all the time and checking work and.
So they're going to it primarily in class. We're using it in class. We have Chromebooks and we use them. We're not a one-to-one school, so this is a shared, technology situation. But we do have it's getting better and better every year. So I can usually have Chromebooks in my classroom. So I'm directing them to my site for videos, for documents, for we were annotating texts online the other day for their Google Drive. All of their documents are there, and they're using that at home as well. So I'm using that for parents and students to go to that site to get the information that they need. So there are sometimes assignments where they have to go home and watch something online, or to any kind of assignment that they have to do, but they can go to my site to get the information that they need. When students are absent, for example, for extended periods, I have quizzes on Edmodo. So I have a student who's traveling now, and I said, the quiz will be up on Tuesday. Wherever you are, you can log in and you can take the quiz. So things like that. So I'm also, in my professional life, using hybrid learning as kind of like for my own profession, creating my own professional learning network. So going back to how this could help teachers with professional development, I've learned through the program how to use tools like Twitter to connect with other teachers and to create my own learning opportunities. So I'm not part of a course, but I'm just looking for what I need to learn and connecting with other teachers online, and using Twitter to follow teachers, to read blogs, to get lessons, to ask questions, and that's been amazing in terms of learning. Overwhelming, of course, because there's so much information out there, but it's just so great to know whenever I have a question now, I can go and post a question on Twitter, or I can go to a certain blog or email a teacher I've met online. So that's another way of kind of bringing hybrid learning into my own professional life. I mentioned teaching the graduate course as well. That's another way that I'm using it now in the more in the sense that I see it, the real meaning of it as hybrid learning, where we're working through modules week by week online, and meeting occasionally face-to-face, having hangouts, being in touch through Google communities and emails and whatnot.
Very cool. It would be nice if our teacher professional development plans, you could basically script out your own plan and say, here's what I want to learn, and here's how I'm going to learn it. Be nice to be able to empower our educators that way.
Right. I think there's definitely schools, I think, that are doing that, and there's people on Twitter saying that we need to do that, and I think that's great when they put the learning into our own hands, that people can really find what they need and learn a lot.
So Tim, I want to thank you for spending some time with us. I want to thank you for allowing us to share your work. We have some links in the actual piece to get in touch with you. Where can people, I know that you would love to get in touch with people. If people want to get in touch with you on the internets, where do you hang out?
So on Twitter, I'm at T Flanagan, TFLANAGAN 01. I have a website that has links to all of my websites, so it can link to my digital learning hub, which is my site that I'm using with students, but also to other sites and blogs, travel blogs and professional blogs. So that is at timflanagan.flavors.me.
Very cool. So once again, this interview is part of a series of interviews that we're conducting around the columns. It's a way to add some complexity and some depth to the columns by speaking with experts in the field. We encourage you to read the column, reach out, have your own responses. If you're testing out and doing some of this in your classroom, please connect with us, share what you're doing, reach out, have your own blog post, have your own video blog post, share and comment on what you're doing and how you're doing it. And once again, thank you. We'll see you later this week.